So excited to really dive in and help you be able to see patterns in your life that many would consider self-sabotaging. And many would consider these patterns in which you've held yourself back. I am a huge fan of Know Thyself. There's so much wisdom and so much literature that really speaks to your ability to know what you're here to do. One of the classes that I have taken over the years, I love to take self-development classes, and I love to extend my wisdom and my knowledge so that when we're here, when we're on these calls, when we're in this space together and creating something amazing, I love to use the words that would be most effective, and especially for you to be able to understand yourself and what will allow you to have the greatest good in your life. What allows you to have the greatest good in your life is becoming aware of what you know, what you don't know, and what you don't know, you don't know. This was taught to me in a course called Landmark Form. They highlighted and they said, imagine all the wisdom in the world. And so we all imagine this big, giant layer of wisdom, all of the wisdom in the world. Now imagine how much of it you have learned in your lifetime. And so we imagine how much we've learned in our lifetime. Then imagine all the things you know that you haven't learned. For example, the content of some recipe in a restaurant, right? You know that you love to eat it, but you don't know the recipe or what's in it. Or for a lot of people, rocket science. You know what rocket science is, but not about how to do it. Then there's all the stuff that you don't know, you don't know. And what's extraordinary about that is the only way you can learn about the stuff you don't know is to come in contact with someone who either knows that stuff or helps you be able to see that stuff. So when I was a kid, growing up in the villages with my grandmother, local healer, amazing abilities to transform someone's health, to help them make their marriage work, for them to be able to do what they wanted to do with their body. She knew exactly how to help women make breast milk, and she only worked with women in the village, but she could so easily create a physical result in someone's body. And it wasn't until I went to medical school and started noticing what other people knew and what other people didn't know that I really understood, wow, I've got a special kind of thing that was taught to me, something special that I had learned from growing up with my grandmother, from being in the village, from speaking a different language. So I didn't know that this aspect of myself and this ability to see differently, ability to see colors, ability to move energy came in, was always present for me, but I didn't know what I didn't know, that not everyone didn't see this way or saw a different way. And this is what the definition of self-sabotage can be. you in your life are marching through, and you've got in your the way that you see the world, you've got a beautiful way that was taught to you. Most of us get 4 billion bits of information a second, and we knock out most of that to only relate to 2,000 bits of information. And in the areas of your life that you want to most make a difference, that are so important to you, you might not be able to see clearly because from childhood, no one really shared with you, wow, other people don't see it this way. The way that you see things is really, really special. I want to say this another way. Marianne Williamson is so often quoted, and this Nelson Mandela quoted her, this amazing, beautiful, these lovely words. It's not your darkness that you're most afraid of. It's your light. And the teachings of Wayne Dyer really go in and really speak to this as well. No one wants to be self-sabotaging. No one knows and is aware that, oh, procrastination or overcommitting, overpromising, or not finishing a complete thought is a way to self-sabotage. It's a way to keep your light from completely shining. It's an amazing thing when we really, really start to understand that every time that you have not forgiven someone else, you are, it's that old quote of when you're angry or you're vengeful, it's like taking poison and expecting someone else to die. This is, no one wants to be less than the optimal version of themselves. It is your light that you are most afraid of, that frightens us, that frightens the world. And in so many forms, your early caretakers. Our greatest fear, Marianne Williamson says, it's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Those are the beautiful words, again, Marianne Williamson so often quoted. And this part of really understanding what is self-sabotage, what is it? if we define it, right? If we define sabotage from the origin of the word, it's a French word that means wooden shoe to some degree. People used to throw a wooden shoe into a machine and sabotage the machine working. Even more so, sort of that statement of one step back, two steps backwards. I want to give you a story of self-sabotage in love. When I was in college, I adored and loved this human being. He was such a beautiful person. When I was in his presence, we were just lit up. And I love this from George. Who are we not to honor our inspiration? Amazing. I felt this lately. I'm acting on an inner knowing and knowing how now and choose to not resist. This part of in college, greatly in love with someone, but I didn't feel worthy. And so I would cause myself to be late for all of the different dates and events. I would, just because I didn't feel worthy. My body was sending me signals, my emotions, your body, your life, everything is trying to self-heal. When something is really important to you and you don't yet feel worthy of it, or you struggle with it, this is when you've got to turn your own energy, your own light, your own knowing, your own preparedness, your own inspiration on. I've got a picture of Mother Mary right behind me, right? Mother Mary, in the times that she walked the earth, was walking around speaking out loud, empowering, helping people. And during those times, she could have been stoned to death. Same thing with people that are walking the earth, walking their talk in war-torn countries, in the kids right now out there demonstrating. They are demonstrating against inheriting an earth that doesn't work. In Europe, millions of kids, United States included, rolled out and said, we're going to make the grown-ups turn around and look at us. You've got inside you the same stuff that Mother Mary had. The same stuff that these children that are standing up, the same stuff that has Gandhi, Mother Teresa's. I want you to really listen deeply to this next statement. If you are pregnant or if you have children, right now, 1 in 3 to 1 in 4 people is having difficulty with fertility. If you have children or you have pregnancy, life force, life is coming through you, expressing. If you are having a heartbeat, literally 1 million people did not wake up today. 1 million people across the planet do not have the opportunity right now that you have. Your breathing, your heartbeat, your ability to co-create what can only come through you. Nature is self-correcting. And so many of us have said, and you may have said this. I know I will only be myself fully if so and so is with me. It used to be really hard for me to go to a party without my husband. If I went to a party without my husband, I didn't want to be too cute. I didn't want to be too flirty. And I don't know whether I'm being flirty or not, but I would like cross my arms and stand and only talk to women. I wasn't gregarious expressing myself because I had this fear that you would think I wanted a guy that wasn't my husband. The society that I grew up in, it's a huge blinder, right? They blame a man's attraction to a woman on the woman. So now I want you to think of this, right? There are societies all over the world that place the responsibility of a man's excitement or a woman's excitement on a woman versus the internal responsibility of that turned you on. So much of us has been designed to see the world and self-sabotage. That wooden shoe in the machine. It's so important. I would dim my light. I would go to these extraordinary meetings and I'd bring my uncle friend with me. I'd bring someone that was to really highlight, oh, I'm a good girl. I'm not trying to turn someone on. And it's really interesting that if that's what I'm constantly thinking about, rather than how can I help you? How can I serve you? Which when I don't have this, when my husband's around, this, I'm just my gregarious, happy-go-lucky, sharing, hey, let me help you. Let me give you this number. Let's connect you with this person. Let's create this result in your life. It was never comfortable. The first 15 times, 30 times I went to an event without my husband. But every time I went, I grew a little bit more. So I didn't shut off my light. So I didn't self-sabotage. In relationships, when you first start out a relationship, when you're first meeting someone, so often we start comparing that person to a list, right? That list might say, oh, wants children, check. Pays for, tips handsomely, check. Writes all of these things that you're comparing. One of my great friends is Dr. Ron Holman. He and I consider each other brother and sister. He opened an insurance company with his first wife called the Holman Group. And they served nearly 2,000 new clients a month through the Holman Group. I got to mentor and teach, and within that, neuro-linguistic programming, some of the therapists, some of the people that work there. And at one point, we filmed him talking about his relationship early on. When he met his wife, he had none of the criteria. She had to teach him how to dress. She had to teach him how to talk. She had to teach him all of these worldly things, what kind of car to drive. And in the movie world right now, right, we see the girl and the guys fully formed, available for the relationship, rather than the growth process that happens together. So you may have a strong checklist of what you're looking for in people to work with and be with and grow with. And the biggest gift that you can give yourself is this ability to really go, all right, I am giving my inspiration and my light over to Source. And to allow yourself to start seeing the signs and relating to everything as a way to grow yourself, as a way to take all the wooden shoes out of your own machine. You've got to know how to ask for what you want. You've got to really step up into the next version of yourself every single day. It's never going to be easy to be the first one to call your parents if you don't have a great relationship with them and say, I'm sorry, I really want a great relationship with you. What can I do to help co-create that? And I'm speaking to us from this standpoint. This is something that, and your parents might say, let's agree to never talk about this subject. And you're like, fine and dandy. We'll never talk about that subject. Let's talk about everything else that works. By the end of this, we're going to do a guided meditation that really involves you embodying you are the one that you've been waiting for. What would your life look like? Who would you be? And I want you to take a few moments of this. We know through science, we know through Miracle Maker frequency, we know from the testimonials that have been shared in this group. You first believe it. You believe it with your mind's eye. You believe it with your heart. You believe it with your relaxed belly. You believe it in your nervous system. You believe it. Then out there, you see it. This radical faith, this radical ability of yours. So I want you to imagine, and you can do this with your eyes open or your eyes closed. I want you to imagine that you have a rich uncle. And this rich, distant uncle passed away and gave you every ounce of wealth that you've ever wanted. The first thing you did is you gave to everyone and helped everyone you wanted to help. Then you went and you traveled and you saw every place that you ever wanted to travel to. You met and hung out with, whether you had to pay them or whether it was just happenstance, you met everyone you wanted to meet. And if you've got paper around you, I really want you to take a note. What would you create? What would you do? What would you put in place? What would you co-create? And if you want to write the answers in the box, I would really, really love that in the chat box. What would you co-create for our world? And I want you to really, really like fully see you don't have to prove anything to anybody. What would you create? And and for me, when I did this, right? When I did this exercise, when I did this, I said, wow, I'd be doing readings for free. I did this, I would be doing healings around the world. I got to do that with non-government organizations. I got to do that here in Los Angeles with the homeless shelters and clinics. I got to do that again recently going to Puerto Rico and these trips, right? Just give. And then I said, what else would I create? I'd create an academy where those that want to coach, those that want to lead, those that want to make a difference would have all the resources, the life coaching, the people, and soon enough, the financial resources to be able to do what they're here to do, for you to be able to do what you're here to do, right? Releasing those self-sabotaging patterns makes such a difference. People pay me $150,000 for a day, 10 for the year, for 12 sessions to help them release self-sabotaging relationship patterns, or to coach them and to create this where it exists for $10 a month so you can have love, unconditional freedom, and unconditional friendships, right? That was my dream. And lo and behold, time after time, and I read this in Brian Johnson's work, or just recently, he said, you know, when master tree pruners, when they're growing trees, even though they will stick to two and spend all of their energy in creating two streams, two trunks, two branches that will grow into the rest, no one else can do the work that you're here to do. And anywhere that you have found yourself telling a lie so that someone else might approve of you, somewhere that you dimmed your light, that you reduced your ability to be your fullest self, you learned something. And the way that we talk about it here is everything in your life either affects you or informs you. So I go into a party and now, you know, am dressed appropriately, showing up empowered, and I meet someone and I am me. I'm not thinking the thoughts of, well, they think I'm being flirty or it's really loose moral character. That's a big, huge thing, right? And for me, I had to create a ceremony around that where I owned my own power around that. I had so much fear around it that I created letting go of any shame. At Burning Man, I went through the crowd, and every day that I was at Burning Man, I had a different behavior pattern that I wanted to release. And so I wanted to release anyone being able to judge me based on how I was with another human being. So I said, today I'm going to release this. I'm going to release other people's ability. And I was really going into releasing any shame attached to my physical body. And I went through and I went through and I did a process, and I was fabulous, and I let and proudly shared with my husband all the processes that I went through to release the shame. I had to do that for me in some sense, to take ownership of my vessel, my body. I was self-sabotaging at meetings because I hadn't dealt with all of the inappropriate sexual attention that I got. And so I went to Burning Man, and any thought that I had, oh, I'm afraid to do this. Burning Man is a festival out in the desert, and I call it free range humans. Everyone out there is free range. You can do whatever. They have a camp for everything that you can imagine. And so I decided this day I'm going to remove shame from my body around sexuality, around this. And so I walked through, and I met a beautiful married man, and I didn't share with him the mission, but he was releasing himself. But these burdens that he was carrying. And he was quite unhappy and distraught. And after a few minutes of talking, we decided to explore the day together. And that became part of my process of spending time with someone, not anytime that thought, that shame, that whatever. I did the ceremony. I did the work. I went through the discomfort. I went through those doors. Whatever it is, if you know the thought that's holding you back, it's really important for you to craft a situation that you can go through a process, that you can feel the discomfort leaving your fingers, leaving your toes, that every one of your cell bodies, every cell in your body multiplies. Right now, 100 million cells are being born. And they're being born with your current consciousness. And everything informs you or affects you. Through the work of Candace Pert, we know that if you're holding an emotion for longer than 2 minutes, your body's addicted to it. So I went to a business meeting and some guy shot me a look, and maybe I felt inappropriate, dressed all of a sudden, or those are our neighbor's dogs. That's so funny. In that energy, in the energy of them looking at me, I could have shut down my light. I went to Burning Man and allowed that and created the scenario where everyone could look at me. And I walked through those doors. And so now business meetings, that sort of scenario, the shame isn't there because I allowed a process, an unconditionally loving process for myself to open up what was possible. So, so beautiful. And change is the end result of all true learning. That's Leo Buscaglia. And it's really important to fully understand. If you're saying that if only I had this much money, then I would do this. If only I had a husband, then I would do this. If only my wife was this way, then I could be this. That's a self-sabotaging thought. If only I had within yourself as well. And we're going to dive into, at the later part, for you to be able to dive in and understand what it is about yourself. It might be a ceremony that you need to go into to be able to stop the self-sabotage. The hardest part is you don't know what it looks like fully until you hand yourself over to source, moment by moment, breath by breath, and you hold like a tall tree. You prune every other thought that's coming in. And you're like, wow, that can be exhausting. Do I have to notice all of my thoughts? The answer is there's 2 times of day that are most important. Right when you wake up in the morning, this is the most important time for you to really co-create. So again, science shows the way that the earth is rotating, that the way that the sun is coming at us, the radiation, the heat, the possibilities that day get created around sunrise. 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning. This is why the monks and the Dalai Lama and all of them wake up before the sunrise. They're harnessing the stillness of the day to have the visions that they're holding, what they believe. And so the Dalai Lama comes to town and the crime rate falls. And all of the books, all of the work that we're studying now shows us that we have collectively created this reality. So the mystery school teachings in Egypt, in India, in Tibet, in Costa Rica, the mystery school information really says that first time in the morning. So it happens in your body. If you're not waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning, then you program yourself before you go to bed. You imagine and see and feel and taste the next day, the way that it occurs for you. It's an amazing gift. You will not believe how beautifully this starts to function for you after 21 days. Why 21 days? Quite often they say it takes that long to build a habit, but truly, every one of your cells is dividing second by second. After about 21 days, the majority of the cells in your body are these new imaginal cells. So you've got in your body imaginal cells. So let me tell you a story of an evolutionary biologist that was studying butterflies. And they noticed that when the caterpillar would eat, it would then form a chrysalis. The chrysalis inside the caterpillar would start to turn to mush. And the new butterfly cells it would start to form. But the caterpillar's immune system would gobble up the new butterfly cells. The gobbling up of the new butterfly cells caused more and more mush, more and more debris, more and more of caterpillar soup. At some point, there was a line between the new imaginal cells and the mush, this line of debris, and more of the imaginal cells multiplied to where it took over the caterpillar cells. And the caterpillar, no longer within the butterfly, has wings, has a body, starts expanding and becoming larger than the chrysalis. And a little hole pops open. These imaginal cells did not get eaten by the immune system. Instead, they became the butterfly. The butterfly is now trying to crack a hole open, and it has to squeeze itself out through the hole. If someone comes along and opens the chrysalis to allow the butterfly to come out simply, the butterfly's liquid never moves from the wings into the body, and the butterfly's not able to fly. Your self-sabotaging is part of this process. You've got to create a chrysalis around you. You've got to create a process around you. And that process has to include either 3 or 4 in the morning waking up, or before you go to bed. You're imagining. And what I'd love for you to imagine is what you might have written down. What you do if you have all the resources in the world. You've traveled everywhere. You've given all the money to the people that you've wanted to give money to. What do you create? How do you show up? If, like me, you don't brighten yourself out loud. In the past, I have a younger sister, and I didn't realize I did this until much later, but my younger sister is much more of an introvert. And so the second she said, "Oh my gosh, I'm sad because of this," I would shut my brilliant light off. So if a friend said, "Oh my gosh, you just shined so brightly there," I didn't know I was self-sabotaging to keep that friendship. My sister didn't feel comfortable whenever there's a song that says, "Shine bright like a diamond." When I was shining bright like a diamond in my sister's presence, she would shut down more and more. So I learned to shut myself down and help my sister shine bright like a diamond. And it was self-sabotaging. I was letting both of us down because I created the illusion there was only enough attention for one of us instead of both of us. There's more than enough. And a tree gets all the sunlight it wants. The roots push down. And when a tree grows stronger, its sibling trees get to stand in its shade or get to use the structures that it built underground or above ground. And so if you had a sibling, you may have subconsciously dimmed your own light for them. You may have acquired the belief there's not enough. If you shine bright, then they can't shine bright. Breathe that in just for a second. Before the age of 6, did you learn to diminish? Did you learn to stay angry as a way to protect yourself because your parents or people around you said that's one way to stay safe? Oh my gosh, how many times did we hear some of the statements like, hurt me once, shame on you, hurt me twice, shame on me, right? And it's important that we learn, that we grow. So that's the first time is at night or at first thing in the morning, then at sunset. Again, the way that the earth is rotating, if we can get into a grateful frequency, a great attitude, you can really, and 21 days of this, being grateful for anything that gave to you that day. You might have been in a car accident. You might have been, but if you walk away from the car accident and you're like, oh my God, every part of me is intact. One of my girlfriends, creative chakra spa owner, beautiful woman, beautiful human, amazing. She's been in a relationship for far too long, one that isn't serving her. And this is a belief system that's written in many, many books. If we're not on purpose, if your life is not on purpose, if your soul cannot accomplish what it came here to do, it will create an accident. So you no longer have to continue. Again, that accident happens with Source, with God, with what created us. We have many times that we can exit. So my friend and partner at Creative Chakra Spa was driving in Topanga. Her car went out of control. Another car stopped her from going off the side of the mountain. She cracked her teeth. She broke her, she has a boxer fracture. And everyone that has known her for the past few years has known she's got to let go of this toxic relationship. But until she was ready, her partner lives in Topanga Canyon. And her soul's on purpose. It could have gone off Topanga Canyon Road and off. And getting out of that car, that sunset, that day, all of us getting so into gratitude. Not that the car is gone, not she's alive and walking. And so was everyone else on the mountain that day with her. The other people, 3 cars totaled. If we can get into that great attitude, grateful attitude, then our light, our frequency expands. There's biblical and verses that say to those that have, more will be given. The second law of thermodynamics, where there's order, order continues. We're a system left on its own. So a cup of hot tea left on its own will get cold. You, like that cup of tea, can create order 2 times to really get actively in creating the love and the expression, creating the worthiness, being the light that you're here to be. And no one else can do it for you. Nelson Mandela said, "The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." And so I really want you to think about this. What beliefs and habits guarantee you cannot realize what you want? This beautiful friend and client of mine was trying for many years to get pregnant. In 1 hour-long session, we identified that she believed that there were too many people on Earth. She'd had maybe 3 years of infertility treatment at that point. Breathe that in. And she was so true to her body, her belief that there were too many people on the planet was what was keeping her from implanting. She and her husband naturally got pregnant and had twins. She had to do the work. She had to break the belief. She had to break the habit. In her cells, she had to have the vision. There's more than enough for everyone on this planet. There's more than enough for us to take care of it and really love and accept. There's more than enough for you to love and accept yourself. There's more than enough for you to forgive yourself. So in college, this guy that I really, really cared for, self-sabotaging behavior, I went out with someone else. And it was just, I didn't feel worthy of him. That was the reason I went out with someone else. And for years, I carried that. I would not forgive myself for having gone out with someone else. And oh my gosh, Source, Love, God, of course, had forgiven me. God, Source, Love has forgiven you for whatever it is, as long as you became a better person, that you understood it. Truly, every person on this planet is working from the standpoint of being able to give their inspiration, their soul's purpose to make a difference. No one's on purpose trying to be a jerk. These are defense mechanisms. And your job, and I'm going to share this video really quickly. Let's go and share this video right here. Let's see if we can pull this up. And it's a beautiful video by an Anna May. She does.
People are so complicated that most of us don't even understand our feelings and thoughts half the time. Yet here we are, 7.5 billion of us stuck on this rock, having to interact with each other, everyone with different goals and values and beliefs, and we all gotta try and get along. And also some people have knives and no emotional reaction to murder. But that's not the point. When I say relationships, I'm talking about any type of interaction between people. Friends, family, colleagues, when you do the kisses with someone. Red flags are a term that everyone's familiar with. That person cheats on everyone they've been with, red flag. That person only uses people for their personal benefit, red flag. That person doesn't wipe off the knife after spreading butter on toast, and when they go for more butter, little crumbs get stuck in the tub, red flag. But what about red flags that only start revealing themselves once you've built trust with someone and have a connection with? When your opinion of someone is positive, those flags can start being overlooked, or you start saying, oh, but they're a good person. I trust them. Oh, I mean, they wouldn't want to hurt me on purpose. It's easy to rationalize warning signs of a bad relationship when you have a positive view of someone, but it doesn't mean that they're not there or should be ignored. They're still being a jerk. It's just complicated by your history together. I think the majority of people tend to be too nice or passive or overly understanding. It's really common and easy to do. Because of that, toxic relationships are much more prevalent than you realize, and it can be difficult to know what to look for. There's a chance you're in a hurtful relationship right now and don't even realize it. The term manipulation gets thrown around a lot, and because of that, I think a lot of people would feel they would be able to identify manipulation if it happened to themselves. But it's not as easy as Chad and Sally are dating. Sally wants to go out with friends. Chad forces Sally to stay home with him. Chad's a manipulator. Yeah, that's actually a super common manipulative situation. But the way manipulation works is that it builds up slowly over time and is almost entirely emotional. Chad might instead start isolating Sally from her friends by nitpicking things he doesn't like about an individual person at a time. I don't like how Nick talks to a lot of girls. That's kind of weird. Don't you think Dawn drinks too much? That's not too responsible of her. Little implants like that can make Sally view her friends not as highly one by one and start trusting Chad more. A few months of this go by and Sally's not hanging out with any of her friends anymore and Chad successfully isolated her, which means he has much more control over her thoughts and emotions. You still might think that's easy to see through, and some people are better at picking up on warning flags than others. I think it's important to keep in mind that everything in real life is much more humanized than when we talk about them. For example, we're raised to believe that drugs are awful. It's pretty much brainwashed into us. You're at a party, the lights are blaring, and someone comes up to you and goes, "Hey kid, wanna do a drug?" Time slows down, the cigarette is glowing with evil energy. You look up, and all of a sudden they've grown horns and fangs, and oh my god, it's Satan! No, that's not what happens. Realistically, you'd be at a small get-together with close friends. You've had a nice night with them so far, laughing and having a good time just like normal. One of them just takes out a little sandwich baggie and is like, "Hey, I've got Coke." There's no time slow-mo or sirens. It's a completely normal feeling situation, and all of a sudden your brain is confused. Drugs are bad, but this is my friend. We've known each other since 5th grade. He's just a normal dude. He's not bad. Are my other friends gonna do it? Your brain thinks of any excuse it can to rationalize behavior from people you trust or think highly of, which applies to relationships. It can be difficult, but you need to define how people should treat you and respect yourself enough to not let people maneuver you into bad situations. Emotionally abusive and manipulative relationships are super freaking common. And it's tricky because they jostle with your head feels and can make you feel like a squashed fly on a window. Stuck, powerless, sad. Like corpses even feel sad. I mean, I guess they're just dead. Emotional blackmail is a way to control or manipulate someone by using guilt, fear, and obligation against them. Is someone passive-aggressive, overly controlling? Do they use threats like, "Do this or I'll hurt you," or even, "Do this or I'll hurt myself"? That leads to another difficult situation. If someone ever belittles themselves, "I'm pathetic. You should just leave me. I'm gonna hurt myself." It puts you in a complicated position because it can feel like there's a responsibility to provide this person with whatever they need because obviously you care about them and you don't want them to feel this way or even do something bad to themselves. But this is a hard pill you've got to just swallow. You are not personally responsible for anyone's happiness. But they've got really bad self-esteem, and I'm worried that not responsible for anyone's happiness. But they're really depressed and can't help it. So I feel like if they're just not responsible for anyone's happiness, I'm Santa Claus. Right, gray area. Responsibility shouldn't be assigned to you, even if it breaks your heart to step back. People normally aren't equipped to be able to help someone with their issues anyway, so it's best to encourage them to see a professional who's been trained to know how to handle things. Someone might be struggling with their own personal stuff, but mental illness doesn't negate their responsibility to maintain a healthy relationship. It just makes them work on themselves. It's okay. You don't need to be a part of that. You've got your own junk. They've got their junk. You need to decide how much of their junk you want to help with. Don't let them forcefully shove their junk on you. I like to imagine I'm my own little ecosystem, and I do my best to maintain it every day. If there's a person or a relationship I have that just feels like pollution in any way, maybe it started off well, but slowly started feeling damaging, then I've got to just step back and ask myself if I need to kick them off my planet. It sounds harsh at first, but you really can't drop your responsibility to maintain your ecosystem in hopes to improve someone else's. Who's going to watch your ecosystem? No one. Because that's your responsibility. Communication is the most important way to know if you can work on fixing the relationship or need to cut it. Hey dude, can you stop dumping toxic waste into my ocean? I've been doing it for a while and all my cute little dolphins are dying. Oh geez, I didn't even realize I was hurting them. I'm sorry. What can I do to be better? Not only have you communicated that there's a problem, but the person takes full responsibility and is willing to work on getting better. But if they say, look, how was I supposed to know? I was just trying to help. Why are you being so sensitive? That's toxic as shit. Shifting blame, gaslighting, guilt tripping, cautious deportation. Let them know how they're affecting you, set boundaries on how much you can give, and make sure you both have your own support systems so you don't have to just rely on each other. If things don't change, look at your behaviors as well. Do you feel like you need to justify or explain their actions too much? Do other people you trust not like them? People can get stuck accidentally blaming themselves or over-rationalizing things that are just not right in the first place. And don't forget that you can also be doing things wrong too. Self-reflect a bit. Verbalize your feelings. Ask yourself, am I being an asshole? Why are you doing things? Out of spite, anger, jealousy? It's tough to admit your faults, but it's more important to be 100% real and brutally honest with yourself if you're going to maintain a 100% real relationship. People who manipulate most often don't realize they're being manipulative. No one wakes up and is like, I'm going to be super manipulative today. Think about your contributions to your relationships and how they affect things. It's okay to admit when you've messed up. More messed up to turn a blind eye and keep being a jerk. It takes a lot to break off any sort of relationship because it can feel like a defeat or like you've given up. But sometimes that's just straight up the best and healthiest solution for both of you. Two people can be great, just not mix well together. If you feel like leaving is dangerous for either you or them, ironically, that's a pretty strong reason to leave in the first place. Someone shouldn't ever need you. They should want you. Your ecosystem should be able to sustain itself. And relationships are just the little sprinkles of fertilizer benefit for it. If you feel like you're not strong enough to break something off, a good way to work on that is to build confidence. Build a good support system, journal your thoughts, practice positive self-talk. I am a god. All right, not that positive. Treat yourself as a friend. It's not selfish to want the best for yourself, especially when someone's over here being a happiness vampire. When you break something off with someone, remember why things didn't work. Repeat it in your head if you need to. A lot of people try and rekindle relationships when the initial problem hasn't been fixed. People need time to change. You don't owe someone a second chance if they haven't put in the work to fix anything. And you can't force someone to get help. If you're unsure about a relationship, think about these questions. Do you love seeing or responding to them? Do you feel worse after spending time with them? Have they threatened you or themselves in any way? Do they make you feel like you can't do things on your own, or you can't make a single decision without them? Do they ask for a lot of favors or money and don't pay it back? Do they talk badly behind your back? Do you feel like you're walking on eggshells around them? Do they put you down? If it's a yes to more than one of those, then you should start considering either ending it or try to communicate and resolve the problems. Don't tolerate any pollution. You are the one who has to live in it, and you deserve clean air. Big thanks to my friend Katie Morton for helping me out with writing this video. I wanted to make sure I didn't say anything inaccurate, and she's a licensed specialist in this type of stuff, and I trust her a lot. Of course, I hope you're able to take this advice and interpret it to situations in your own way. If you want to put a lot of energy into trying to help—
That is Jaden Animation, and she, I got introduced to her. My daughter went to Anime Expo last year, and beautiful, brilliant. She's so much emotional maturity coming in. To summarize that, to really, really understand, your first step is to really know yourself, and to really, that exercise of going into and creating a beautiful knowing that this is what I would do if I had every resource in the world. What is it that you would create? What is it that you would do? And that's part of it. Really, really to know yourself. The other part is to begin actively creating in the morning and at sunset the vision of what you're bringing forward. The next part of this is to really examine and take a look at your beliefs. The beliefs that, like, you know what you want. My dear friend and client wanted babies, and she had a belief that Earth was too populated by humans, and that really affected her ability. Once that was cleaned out of her system, natural twin children came in. But other areas, if you believe, for example, that money only people that lie, cheat, and steal have a lot of money, you're building your belief system will guarantee that you're not able to have a great deal of money. If you believe there's all the good men are taken, that belief system right there just guarantees it's a self-sabotaging belief system. Then the next part, which is, I love Jaden animation. The way that I frame her information is only give from your overflow. We're here to make a difference. You're here to make a difference on the planet. And if you truly make a difference on the planet, you're going to be around people that are passive aggressive, that manipulate, that are emotionally unavailable, people that gaslight. You're going to have to become able to give and build trust and respect with those people to help them become better versions of themselves. I'm going to say this another way. There's no other. There's no out there. This is Earth. And once you begin being able to manage yourself and your communities well, you've got to create your influence, your ability to help others. And those others are not going to be easy people to help. So you've got to really embody that you don't need, I love this term, a spiritual binky to be able to do what you're here to do. You've got to be the strong one. You've got to be the version of yourself that's so bright and lit up that and for me, it's like seen as a sex object or seen as wanting to seduce someone, right? Seen that way, you're not, who cares? Other people's opinion of me is none of my business. What is my business is this vision, this ability to serve and give, this ability to embody the light that I'm here to embody. To be the conduit of the change, that source, that God, that love, that all the resources in the world would have me be. What is that for you? What are you here, the conduit of that? And so when I was pregnant with my daughter, Oh gosh, I didn't realize how important it was to overcome my eating disorder, my smoking cigarettes, my only drinking coffee, right? I drank coffee, smoked cigarettes, and if I ate something, I threw it up. And then here I am pregnant with my daughter. I wouldn't have done that for myself, nourished myself with food because I didn't have the self-worth. But I had this beautiful baby inside me. And I knew what it meant as a medical doctor, someone who delivered babies in the field, 300 plus. This baby told me, I'm here, my ribs expanded. And I told my husband the day that it happened, baby, I'm pregnant. And he's like, wow. And I'm like, yep, it just happened. I could hear and communicate. We all have that ability. I'm so, so grateful that you're here and that we're diving in. The next little part, you've got to notice when something informs you or if it affects you. If it affects you, if it changes how you're going to show up, then it's got power over you. So if I show up somewhere and someone says, oh, we don't like your kind here, or I sense that, and if I diminish my light, then that person's energy affected me. And if someone says, oh, we don't like your kind here, and I'm like, oh, interesting, curious even, then it informed me. Everything can either affect you or inform you. And you are affecting and informed with yourself. The areas of your life that are working, you are in formation about. Break up the word, right? Information. You are in and you're forming that info. Whatever you believe to be true, in formation. Whatever you're affected by, this is where you can't think straight, where you might not be able to see straight. And you've got to let down a habit or a belief in order to fully embody who you're here to be. Okay, beautiful. I'm going to stop this right here for a second.